Coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles, the Eagles headed to their bye week at 6-0. They're undefeated. So, of course, that means we're going to talk about the NFL draft. Trust me. It'll make sense once we get into it. This is Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to a Thursday edition of the show. Today's episode is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. I'm Louis DiBiase. He's Gino Camilleri. You might be playing some daily fantasy right now as we're recording this show because the Arizona Cardinals are taking on the New Orleans Saints. And Gino, that game, for the Eagles are 6-0, and we're going to be paying attention to seeding in the NFC now, right? I mean, with how easy their schedule looks, that's kind of the main focus now. It seems like in the, stretch run after the bye week. But we're going to be watching the Saints a lot, too, for the NFL draft because the Eagles have their pick, and right now, it's 5th overall. So, you should be excited about the team being undefeated, and the draft is a long ways away, and you might be getting ahead of yourself, but it's exciting to see them not only have 2 first-round picks, but one's in the top 5 of a class with a ton of talent. I mean, this team could get even better long-term. It's incredible that they're having their cake and eating it, too, like we've talked about on the show before.
And last year, they were in the same situation,
Yeah,
and they had Miami's pick, which
and it was also top 5 at this point, right?
Which for a while looked pretty good. But they started to get on a run at this time of the year, and they got hot down the stretch. But as we're recording, New Orleans down 18 to the Arizona Cardinals in the fourth quarter. They're currently sitting at 2-4. They're going to move to 2-5. Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, and Andy Dalton, seriously, these are the guys that they threw out there and traded away their first-round pick in a class which is star-studded at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
And the reason is Howie Roseman preached one thing last offseason, Lou, flexibility. Mm-hmm. He has created flexibility not just last year, not just the year before that. He acquired Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. You got Jalen Hurts the year before that. You got out of that contract, acquired some more goods, and you're just getting optionality year over year over year where they're not handcuffing themselves like they did in 2017, 18, 19, where you're making 5 picks in back-to-back years. They're now talking about having potentially a top 5 pick. I would say top 10 just to be, let's say, a little devil's advocate.
Currently, though, is at 5th overall, and if the Saints lose tonight, it might be at 4 or 3.
It definitely will be right around there. And the other pick that the Eagles have currently is number 31. And we have to remember there's only 31 this year because
I messed up that already today. Yeah.
The New England Patriots, they do not have, or no, Miami.
The Dolphins. It's
Miami.
Perfect that you thought it was New England.
Did you think it was New England as well?
If the team in the AFC East was cheating, it would be the Patriots. So that makes perfect sense.
I mean, it could be any year, but
it's beautiful that your subconscious did that. They're like, cheating AFC East has to be New England.
Has to be the Patriots. But, man, if you're a New Orleans Saints fan right now, shout out to Ross Jackson.
Gosh.
I can't imagine what's going through his head
because they need a quarterback. That's
Saints.
the funniest part, Gino. It's like the Eagles made that move with quarterback in mind for sure. Mm-hmm. They wanted the flexibility of seeing what Jalen Hurts could do in year 2 as the full-time starter, but they wanted the optionality of, hey, C.J. Stroud's in next year's class, Will Levis, Bryce Young, maybe Anthony Richardson or another one of these 4th prospects. We want that optionality. They wanted overall flexibility, like you said, but a lot of it was about quarterback. They're going to have this pick and their quarterback, it seems like. And the Saints are the team that needs the signal caller. And they did it for Chris Olave, who's a good player. But I thought that was crazy at the time, and it looks like we were right to be skeptical of New Orleans' end of that bargain. Well, bargain for Philly.
Yeah, the Eagles stole that trade. I mean, hands down. And to still walk away with A.J. Brown. When you look at those 2 selections, you basically say that the Eagles in the first round last year got Jordan Davis and they picked A.J. Brown with their second round pick. If you're New Orleans, you're sitting there and saying, we just spent 2 first round picks on what would be Trevor Penning Really? That's what
Yeah.
you're going to justify it with? And what do you draft an offensive tackle for? You probably draft them to surround a young quarterback like Justin Herbert, exactly what the Chargers did last year when they go out and draft the guard from Boston College. But now New Orleans, not only are they on the older side with a lot of the players on that team, you look at Tyrann Mathieu comes there expecting to make a run with this team. Well, I don't see them making a run anytime soon with what they have there.
Yeah, it
But
did seem like they thought they could do more with Jameis Winston than they're getting.
Which is
it did
crazy.
seem like that. Yeah.
It definitely is crazy. But we're sitting here, Lou, saying we're at the bye week. We know there's on the field things to worry about. Definitely with the second half, adjusting to blitzes, making sure your defense is in the right coverage, right scheme. But we know that this thing isn't just a one season league. This thing goes on forever and ever and into perpetuity. This league is never going away. It's the most popular sport in America. And Howie Roseman has seemed to maneuver through multiple decades. And once again, he's going to be sitting there at the poker table with all these chips when the other guys are just trying to skate by. They have
what if
one
a team
or two chips in their hands, and this guy could just bully them all in, really.
And he could keep getting flexible for more years. Let's say, hypothetically, if a team in the top 10 wants to get up to your 5th overall pick you have right now, quarterback, you could collect future picks even more and keep this window extended year after year. What was supposed to be an outlier season where you get an extra first round pick because you lost your franchise quarterback turns into 3-4 years of flexibility. And, that's kind of the interesting part is a lot of people are suggesting when looking at these picks and saying, what do the Eagles do if you don't use these picks for a quarterback because Jalen Hurts, like let's say Hurts keeps this level of play up the rest of the year and you don't even consider one of those prospects. What do? You could trade for a quarterback needy team. You could also, you used your first round pick last year on AJ Brown. So you want that optionality if there's another guy in the market to help your team win now. But also, Gino, like I was thinking about it today, I honestly would be okay if they just sat and took 2 prospects, because when you think about it, look at all of the guys they have to pay this offseason. In that scenario, in this scenario would include Jalen Hurts eventually. You could use some key pieces on this team with team-friendly rookie deals for 5 years, also to replace a lot of those free agents and to complement the ones that they already pay. So they could really do no harm with what they choose. It'll be fascinating to see, though, if they're a Super Bowl contender and this pick is top 5, what they do with those ones. Because, like I said, there's a bunch of different routes they can take.
Let's say the Eagles selection is 25th or later.
Yeah.
I'm open to trading
Which
that.
I think it will be.
Any day of the week. Trade it for somebody, not to the AJ Brown caliber. It's going to be a little later, of course, but go and find a guy that could be an instrumental part of your team, or just sit there like you said. But whatever that New Orleans Saints pick is going to be, you sit there, and in this class, which, by the way, after this, I want to ask you a question. Yep. In this class, with the quarterbacks, you know that these teams are going to try and come up, try and get the best guys. Somebody's going to get the third quarterback that they value higher than everybody else, jump up after Stroud and Young are gone, probably get 3-4 guys selected in the top 10. All of this defensive talent is going to fall to you, or offensive talent. You could be sitting there saying, I could take the best wide receiver on the board. I could take the best cornerback. I could take the best safety. I could take the best defensive end. I could even take the best interior guy if I want to as well. That's all the flexibility in the world. That's what Howie Roseman was talking about setting up these windows. And like you said, Jalen Hurts, who my question to you is, what is that percent for you currently that at the end of the year, they'll say, this isn't even a question, we're going to sign him?
Right now, it's, man, I mean, the way he's playing, he's doing everything we laid out. So it's crazy. Even me, I'm the guy that talked about to death what they could do with these 2023 picks when it comes to quarterback, because I didn't think he would do this. Right now, I think they're all in on paying him. So
100%? You would put it at 100%?
Maybe not 100 because it's only been 6 games, but is it 80, 85? I mean, is that being a little extreme? I'm not sure.
I think there's like 92% is my confidence.
Yeah. I mean, he could still kind of fall, and there's still time.
Unless he does what Wentz does in 2020.
I can't imagine. And with Jalen, he's just not that kind of guy. Maybe he just kind of plateaus and evens out and is still good, not great. And maybe in that case scenario, if you have the third overall pick, you want to take Bryce Young, I'd understand. But if he's playing at the level he is right now, they're not going to even consider it next year, man. They can look at Jalen Carter, the Georgia interior defensive lineman. And this pick also helps
Anderson.
them.
Could you imagine
Will
Anderson on this team? Dude?
Right, because what if Detroit takes a quarterback up top? And what if Carolina does, and it pushes a Will Anderson down the board? That's the other thing is, you want to keep a lot of these free agents that are coming up, but having these picks also doesn't screw you over if you lose, Javon Hargrave and James Bradbury and TJ Edwards or Kazir White. You have the optionality in the draft too to not feel like we have to pay every single one of these guys. You want to pay a lot of them, but again, you have just so many assets that it's going to help you long term. Not only are you undefeated right now, but things are looking so good for the future.
We knew the reality of this situation, that with all these free agents, with all the influx of good high-end talent, the inevitable Chauncey Gardner-Johnson extension, the probably inevitable Jalen Hurts extension, Devontae Smith is going to get paid in a couple of years. You couldn't do what you did in 18 and 19, as I referenced earlier, and only have 10 picks over 2 calendar years. You needed to have this optionality, another element of that, the flexibility to bring in young talent that will support those pillars. Because if you look at Golden State, I think Golden State has done a great job over their tenure of their quote-unquote big three that they've had. And with Kevin Durant, of course.
Yeah.
But finding those role players that just come in and fit. The Penguins have done a good job at this in hockey as well. You could look at, the Los Angeles Dodgers just continue to push all the right buttons in baseball until this year. But those teams that just tend to strike the right chord and find that talent that supports the guys that are that franchise, the Jalen Hurts, the Devontae Smiths, the now A.J. Browns, Mailatas, Lane Johnsons. Finding those compliments is key. You're not always going to do that through free agency, especially with the salary cap. If it was the MLB, you could get away with it all day. But in this league, the draft is
part of why I'd be okay if they just kept both picks. I'd be okay if they sold
Two
out.
Rookie contracts would be great.
Right. And that's the thing. Or if a team wants a quarterback and they're offering you multiple 1s or 2s down the road, I get why they take that too. But either way, it's a great position to be in. The Eagles are 6-0 and they're sitting with 2 first-round picks, 1 in the top 5. Things are looking up in Philadelphia. But I want to get back to the on-the-field product, coming up next. I feel like the Eagles, even at 6-0, still maybe aren't getting the respect they deserve. Color us shocked in Philadelphia. The Eagles are maybe still underdogs despite being a great team. We'll get into that coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. And guys, today's show is sponsored by Blue Nile. As the original online jeweler, Blue Nile offers the largest selection of independently graded diamonds and pieces priced significantly below traditional retailers. Blue Nile has helped millions of couples create their perfect engagement ring. Their easy online tools let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelries will help you handcraft her perfect one-of-a-kind engagement ring. Looking for a piece of fine jewelry to commemorate a special milestone, but still have trouble choosing? Blue Nile is jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Shop stress-free with Blue Nile's 100% satisfaction guarantee. All Blue Nile orders are insured and shipped for free in discreet packaging. They also offer overnight shipping if you're in a rush. My girlfriend ordered some stuff on Blue Nile. Absolutely loved it. Make your moment sparkle with Blue Nile. Go to BlueNile.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. That's Blue Nile, BlueNile.com. Promo code LOCKEDON to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. Again, that's BlueNile.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. I'm Louis DiBiase. He's Gino Camilleri. This is Locked On Eagles. Thank you so much for making LOE your first listen each and every day. Make sure your second listen, and make sure you check out as well the NFL key predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL. Locked On's local experts give you the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football, plus betting advice from the field's leading experts at BetOnline. Follow NFL key predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Gino, the Eagles are 6-0, and I don't know. I don't want to say they're like being counted out. It's not 2017 where everybody's all in on the Atlanta Falcons over the 1-seed Birds, but they're still, I don't know, like, do you still feel like they're almost being overlooked in a way? I know from specifically analysts that we have on this network in our group chat doing power rankings for Locked On, there are still people that maybe don't think the Eagles are in that top tier. And are they as good as the Bills right now or the Chiefs? I'd still probably say those two teams are better, but I think they are in that tier. I think they're much closer to those teams right now than the other good, not great teams like Minnesota, Dallas, your teams in your division, New York. I still think you're on another level, and it still maybe doesn't feel like it a whole lot. It's still like the surprise story of the year.
So every week we get to vote on power rankings here at Locked On NFL.
Yeah.
And there was a certain host of Locked On Bengals, and it wasn't James Rapine, so you could probably figure out who it was. And he said verbatim, it is Buffalo. I can't even utter. I hate uttering this sentence. Buffalo and Kansas City, and then Philadelphia, and then some good teams, and then some bad teams. And then he went on to say that he has them closer to being in the, quote, mid-tier of good teams, which to me is bananas. Because as I said the other day, the team that, quote unquote, hasn't beat anybody has quite literally beat every opponent that is put in front of them. These schedules, folks, are made literally years in advance. The NFL has a schedule release.
And they haven't beat just nobody's, Gino. They beat a 5-1 Vikings team. That's the number 2 seed in the NFC. They beat a 4-2 Dallas Cowboys team that's loaded. They beat an Arizona Cardinals team that's not great, but they made the playoffs last year.
They might be in first place after tonight, dude.
And they have a lot of talent. So the Jacksonville Jaguars aren't some pushover. The Detroit Lions aren't a pushover. The only team that really stinks that they beat is Washington.
I don't know how you look at this team in the fashion that they have won the games as well, where it's not just been one manner where you're leading the whole time and you're just blowing teams out.
Yeah.
Or you come from behind and you're a second half team. The identity is that the Philadelphia Eagles will turn on the offense that is working. They will keep the hot hand, whether that's in the passing game, whether that's on the ground. They will turn it on when it matters. Their defense, they're still trying to figure out their identity, but they have stepped up in big moments. And the thing to me that I look at is, have they had a come-from-behind victory? Yes. Have they had a blowout victory where they've had to hold
against a good team
multiple times? Have they had a game where they've slipped up, let a team back in, but in the end they were able to finish it off with a big, long 8-minute drive that has now happened 3 different times in the National Football League under Nick Sirianni, where these 7.5-minute drives are just ending teams' will at the end of games, and they're not turning the ball over on offense. They're getting interceptions on defense. Their turnover ratio right now is bananas.
They're number 1 in explosive plays. They're top 5 in
keep
sacks.
Keep going down the accolades. What more can you want?
What part of the team, like, this isn't the 2012 Eagles that were 3-1, but they were like leading the league in turnovers on offense with injuries everywhere. Mm-hmm. This team has some of the best trench play on both sides in the entire NFL. You have a quarterback
even when they're hurt, Lou. They're 9 deep on the offensive line.
No single starter has given up double-digit pressures this year on the Eagles. You have a quarterback. The biggest thing is why this isn't a fluke is your quarterback's taking an MVP-like step. That in itself is the pure definition of sustained success in the NFL. As you said, they've shown they can win in multiple ways on offense. They're loaded on all 3 levels on defense. I don't understand what is fluky about this team. They're not winning random games, come from behind victories. They're dominating football teams. If the Eagles aren't there, then who is in the NFL right now? Because but even Buffalo has had a hiccup against Miami. Kansas City was trailing against the 1-4 Las Vegas Raiders just a week ago.
Won.
The entire NFL looks mid. So if the Eagles are pretenders at 6-0, and I know he wasn't saying the Eagles are like a 3rd-tier team. He was just saying he doesn't think they're with Buffalo and Kansas City. But the manner in which, some people have addressed Philadelphia compared to other teams, it still feels like they're grouped in with the good, not great teams. And they got to prove it in the playoffs for sure. But I don't know. Last year, me and you even said, yeah, they were 7-2 down the stretch, and we loved how they turned things around. But we also admitted, hey, they're playing a lot of bad quarterbacks. That's not the case this year. We'll admit when it's fluky. I don't think there's anything fluky about this football team.
Don't give me the Cooper Rush excuse. I'm sick of that. People were crowning this guy to be the next starter in Dallas after coming off of 3 weeks.
Yeah, they were 4-0 with the guy.
They beat him and scored 20 points on the Dallas Cowboys defense, which hadn't allowed 20 points all year long. The Minnesota Vikings, who are currently ahead of the Green Bay Packers, who have, Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback, who has consistently owned that division, are sitting at 5-1. Trivia question, Lou, lightning round. Who's the only team that Minnesota has lost to this year?
The Philadelphia Eagles. By the way,
continue.
They raced the best receiver in football. Justin Jefferson's had over 100 yards, every game except for Philadelphia.
Detroit. Yep.
Right. I mean, I don't understand why they would have
scenario. If it was this where Jalen Hurts, let's say he's thrown like 4 or 5 more interceptions.
Yeah.
AJ Brown is the only guy to have, let's say, over 300 yards. Let's say Miles Sanders is gone for about half of what he has. The defense has half as many picks, and they come out and they're on the 4-2 end. Yeah, I could get into that conversation where they've probably skated by. Well, they've been through those adversity-ridden games, and that's why it makes me so mad when people say that, because it puts no respect into the lessons that were learned in years past, in games past, where they have been in those close games. We sat on these airwaves after multiple letdowns to Carolina, Tennessee back in 2018, the 2019 season, which was a disaster for most of the time. We went through all of 2020, and now we're sitting here and saying, yeah, a lot of those things, a lot of those leaders that were there that went through the bad to learn how to get to the great, which you need to overcome lessons. You need to overcome those failures. Well, the Eagles have gotten past all of that after winning a Super Bowl. So to say that they haven't experienced the highs and lows and don't deserve to be in that conversation where they haven't crawled before they walked, before they ran, man, they've done that. They have suffered for years, and here they are finally.
I think, too, if you want to make the argument that you don't know if you throw Jalen Hurts and the Eagles in that situation that Buffalo and Kansas City had in the playoffs last year, and you still say, I need to see more before I'm all in, I totally understand that talking point. But this team overall can hang roster-wise the strength of this team. And if this version of Jalen Hurts is in the playoffs, this version of the Eagles can hang with both of those teams. And to me, anybody in the NFL, I think this is a team you're going to look back, no matter what they do this year, even if they disappoint in the playoffs, if they only win, they lose in the first round, or if they, only win one playoff game or something like that. If they don't win a championship, we're still going to be in a decade looking back. Like, we're not prisoners of the moment with this team. We're going to be looking back in 10 years and saying, holy cow, that's one of the most talented Eagles rosters ever.
Definitely.
And we're either going to say they underachieved and didn't get to the accolades we thought they could, or they're going to meet that ceiling. I think this team is more talented than the championship team of 2017. Does that mean they're going to be the better overall team that does exactly what that unit did? Who knows? But I don't think anything is fluky about this roster or what Jalen Hurts is doing right now. He has to sustain it. I totally agree. Is he Mahomes yet? No. Is he Josh Allen yet? No. But the version of Hurts right now, they can win a Super Bowl with this team. Absolutely.
Without a doubt. I mean, I echo everything that you just said. And to say that they can't hang in those games with those teams, there's always this talking point when you talk about SEC football. And it's like, can you go too deep at a position against like an Alabama or a Georgia? Well, Alabama can't go too deep at a lot of positions this year. You're seeing them get exposed. Well, the Philadelphia Eagles can go too deep with anybody. Too deep at receiver, too deep at corner, 3 deep at cornerback, too deep at safety, too deep at linebacker, too deep at edge, too deep on the interior. You could go too deep starting units of offensive linemen, 3 deep in the backfield. And the one guy that you need, Jalen Hurts. And he makes everybody better. He is the multiplying factor to make this team what it is, and to not look at the growth that not just him, but the whole team has in general. After starting 2-5, to have a turnaround to 6-0, that just goes to everybody in the preparation that went in. It went to Howie Roseman finding out what this team needed. It went to Nick Sirianni taking a step back as the play caller, realizing, hey, Shane Steichen might be better at this. And all of the little things that they did, all those little fine-tune adjustments on that Formula One car, that analogy I always use. We said, can Jalen Hurts keep it out of the wall? Well, man, they're halfway through this race right now, and they're in pole position. Like, you just got to fend off everybody else and keep doing what you're doing. I don't care what people say. It obviously frustrates me. You could hear it from my voice. But, Lou, you and I know at the end of the day, like you said, we'll look back. We'll either say this next 3-4 years was that success like we wanted, that continued success outside of 2017 where it was just a solo year, or we'll say, yeah, that team could have done better.
They can be the Bengals.
They're there, man. They're there.
They can be the 2021 Bengals where, was it Bills and Chiefs? It looked like King Kong and Godzilla, absolutely. But you can be that third monster for sure with the way this roster looks. And has this specific core done it yet? No, for sure. Last year's playoff run, they got smacked in the mouth the minute they played a true contender. But this is a different team. This is not the 2021 Eagles. This is not the Eagles of the last 5 years. And I think they're right there in that top tier. If you want to put Buffalo and Kansas City ahead of them, I totally understand. But to maybe overlook them right now, and I don't know, like I said, and people aren't saying they're not going to make the playoffs and they're total fakers and frauds, but it still feels like they're almost like look at this cool story of this new young team, and like, let's see how long will this continue, as if it's kind of this, like, I don't know, facade in a way, or just this like trendy topic that's going to burn out eventually. This like unexpected story. I think Jalen Hurts, I didn't expect him to do this, but I think the roster doing what they're doing, we've been saying since April, this is what they were capable of for sure. Gino, coming up next, I do want to get into a quick look at the NFC, because we mentioned the Minnesota Vikings, the Dallas Cowboys, and now that the Eagles are 6-0 and undefeated, already there's a lot of games left, but we got to start thinking about seeding. And I want to kind of talk to you about like who might be right now, who are the other true contenders and who are the pretenders in the NFC. So we'll get into that coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles.
But before we do that, we have a message from our friends over at Simply Safe. Let me take you through an analogy here. When it comes to burglars, your home is like the end zone. We talk football here all the time. Imagine you got A.J. Brown. Where does he want to go? He's hungry. He wants to get into the end zone. Well, so does everybody else that's looking at your beautiful home that you just bought, that you and your family are inside of, and you want to make sure that you protect it. Make sure you trust Simply Safe Home Security. Simply Safe, your safety is the only thing that matters. It's cutting-edge technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back, so you always know that your home is safe with 24/7 professional monitoring. Simply Safe's agents will call you the moment a threat is detected. So as soon as that alarm goes off, just like the end zone call at Lincoln Financial Field, you'll know when things have gone off. Simply Safe blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors for every single room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and outside of your home, smarter ways to detect motion that only alert you when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes today. Go to simplysafe.com/lockedonnfl. Save 20% on your Simply Safe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplysafe.com/lockedonnfl. There's no safe like Simply Safe.
This is the Locked On Eagles podcast. I'm Louis DiBiase. He's Gino Camilleri. We're wrapping up this Thursday edition of the show, and the Eagles are undefeated, 6-0 for the first time since 2004. I've probably said that stat every show for the last 3 weeks because we're going to milk it as long as they're undefeated. And,
hey, 2 more. They set a record, man.
Yeah, man. They got the bye week this week. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers coming up. The schedule looks pretty easy, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but you got to start thinking about seeding. Right now, the Eagles have, a 99% chance of making the postseason. And you look across the NFC, the Minnesota Vikings are the 2 seed right now. You beat them. The Dallas Cowboys are a playoff team. You beat them. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are struggling. They look like a shell of who they were the last 2 seasons with Tom Brady. The Green Bay Packers, the same thing. The Los Angeles Rams, the same thing. All the teams we said are above the Eagles. We're all offseason we said we know they can be with Minnesota and Dallas and Arizona, but can they be with Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Los Angeles? They look like they're ahead of them right now. Are those still the teams that you're going to be watching, though, for the rest of the year with seeding and who the real threats are when it comes time for the playoffs? Or who really are the juggernauts in the NFC, or maybe not just are the good teams in the NFC, to put it lighter, that you're going to be watching this year?
I think the threat of Green Bay is always real, especially later in the season with Aaron Rodgers. I think that game is definitely one that you want to look at.
Even if the roster struggles, no matter what, you never want to play Rodgers or Brady, even if this continues 100%. For those squads. Yeah,
never. Not that late in the season.
Yeah.
I look at this stretch, though, much like the 2017 stretch, where after a pretty, I wouldn't say difficult, but a tougher part of that beginning schedule, you had a stretch where you were playing Chicago, then you played Denver, then you played the Niners, and you were like, we just need to win these games and leave no question about it. Right. I was at that 31-3 beat down of the Chicago Bears.
And I was at the Monday night game against Washington where they destroyed Kirk. Yeah.
Denver, I'll never forget Alshon Jeffrey sending, I can't even remember his name right now, but he sent him into the shadow realm. Aqib Talib. Yeah, he quite literally snatched that man's ankles out from underneath him, and they just won all of those games. And we were worrying about, okay, we had this seeding, so down the stretch we don't have to worry about it, and that's the situation I want to get into.
Yeah.
So the real threat is not tripping up at the level of opponent that you are playing. That stretch that we saw back in 2017, I think, is a very perfect formula to go about it. Like, beat those teams that you are supposed to, and don't leave any
because you're
threat
already up multiple games. Yeah, you're already up multiple games on these teams, and you have the fourth easiest schedule, I think, remaining in the NFL for the rest of the way.
It's got to be close to the top, man.
So, maybe. I agree. I think the team you should be scared of the most when it comes to seeding is really yourself. But when it comes time for the playoffs, though, I would say, and again, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but you got to start lining up who it is. Like, you got to start thinking playoffs when you're undefeated this late into the season. Mm-hmm. And I still think of all the teams, the top tier teams we mentioned this offseason, the Rams, the Buccaneers, the Packers, if anybody's going to get back to their true form, Gino, I do think it is Tampa Bay. I think Los Angeles, their offensive line issues are legitimate. I think Green Bay, their weapons problems, absolutely legitimate. Can they hang with a team like Philadelphia? I don't know. Tampa Bay's offensive line has been struggling this year, but they still have better personnel than those other teams. They still have Tom Brady. They still have a explosive, fast defense. I still think Tampa Bay would be the team right now, even over Minnesota, over Dallas, New York, even with Dak Prescott coming back. Tampa Bay is still the team that I'm like, that's the big competition in the conference.
Well, if we started the revenge tour 6-0,
nice to finish it off.
That would be great to exercise some demons against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And they have to come to the link.
With you. That's my concern. If you can get playoff games in Lincoln Financial Field, we saw what happened on that Sunday night against the Minnesota Vikings. If they can recreate that environment, that's the closest thing I've seen to the environment of an SEC football game in my time watching the Eagles. I mean, the stadium was quite literally rocking, and the first time you see them come out of that tunnel in a home playoff game with Jalen Hurts, I just feel like it's going to be a different beast. And how do you get there? It's by not shooting yourself in the foot, not going back on those lessons past of 18, 19, 20, where you have took a dip toward that middle of the season. You have kind of made the end of the year be a must-win situation. I don't want to get there, but I also don't want to level out like 2017. I just want to remain consistent from now until the end of the year. Don't change anything until it is broken. And outside of the things that we have addressed with the personnel on defense, with the 4 or 5 man fronts, with being able to beat the blitz, being able to come out hot in the second half, you work those kinks out. Everybody's healthy, much healthier than 2017. Sky's the limit for this team, Lou, and those expectations, they could quite literally meet reality this year.
this should have been this podcast title should just be maybe getting ahead of ourselves. We talked the draft, we talked the playoff picture, and we're only 7 weeks into the season. But hey, man, when you're undefeated and you got this kind of outlook, things are looking great. So you definitely got to, move forward. We'll continue to get into it coming up on Locked On Eagles next week. We've got, we also have a show tomorrow. We have another show Friday. And then Monday through Friday next week, we take a look at the Pittsburgh Steelers matchup with the Birds. Follow us on Twitter at LockedOnBirds, at GC24_football, and at DBLCLOE. Subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms, on YouTube as well. And as always, we thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Make sure your second listen is the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson, they give you the expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your shows. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. As always, thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching and listening. And let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.